Yo, so big question all the time when it comes to my debt service coverage ratio loans, debt service coverage or DSCR, which is how much your income versus how much your expenses. So as long as you're making as much income as the cost to maintain the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, you have a deal that we can make work. Now, if you're putting more down, like 30% down, it's interesting. We don't have a limit as far as a minimum DSCR. But one of the big questions on that, and didn't hit the date today, is the 29th of April. But one of the monster questions is what's the downside? Well, downside, in some person's opinion, might be the fact that we have a prepayment penalty. Now, personally, I don't give a F about prepayment penalty. Because right now people are so worried about the interest rates going down. Well, if the rates go down, now I have this prepay and I can't get that lower interest rate. Guys, if you have not figured out the rates don't matter as a real estate investor, then you're not really an investor. Honestly, you're an opportunity force being yanked around by people who also don't understand the value of the deal you're looking at. They're just telling you, hey, here's a low interest rate. It should work because interest rate's low. Any deal could work in a low rate environment in reality, but depends upon also what all your other expenses are. What's really interesting, cash on cash return has been the biggest metric that's been used in the real estate game as far as convincing investors to buy. And what's funny about the cash on cash return deals now, if you got a really high cash on cash return, is because you're in an area that you're going to need all of that to fix the property every time it turns, because you're in a high turn area, you're in a C class area that has really bad tenants in reality. And so what you end up having is no cash flow, but it looked awesome on paper and you got sucked into it because this amazing so-called interest rate or high cash on cash return. You got to look at a deal from a lot broader perspective. But I'm digressing. Talking about the prepayment penalties. So me and every successful investor I've worked with, they are playing the long game. They're getting into the deal for more than just the cash flow, looking at all the aspects of this transaction, and they're in it for the long haul. They don't wait for circumstances to put them in a position to buy. They find the right transaction to operate within whatever the circumstances are, regardless of the interest rate environment, regardless of the rental market and how that's working. You're going to find specific deals that will work regardless. That's what you're hunting for. What deals work in your environment, period. And in the circumstances you're operating within. So that being the situation, a deal that you're looking to refinance down the path because the rates doesn't make sense. You're spending a lot of money for nothing, especially when you start talking inflation. If you want to understand the inflation, how that plays into it, reach out to me, 602-291-3357. Text me. We'll start talking about your next deal. But the other factor is if you're going to refinance, is to get cash out to reinvest. Now, if you're not doing some BRRRR strategy or something like that, if you're purchasing it and putting money down, once you get into that 30-year fix, you should be locked into it and not care about your 5-year prepayment penalty, because you shouldn't be refinancing. At least I'm not going to refinance in that window of time, because there's no way I'm going to pay down the note enough, and there's no way I'm going to appreciate enough to get enough cash out to reinvest on a couple more deals. Just shouldn't. Well, I'm not saying it won't happen. It's possible. We've seen it happen before. And, after the crash, we saw things jump like crazy, but that's not the norm. So that should not scare you to have a prepayment penalty whatsoever. You shouldn't give a crap about that. So that, just my thought. The other thing about refinancing these days, very, very interesting statistic. Take a look at, I like to follow unusual whales. I said 42% of the refinance applications right now are being denied. Denied. So one thing we're seeing right now, we're getting a lot of them done. In fact, I don't know if really any there are not getting denied. We're having to get exceptions. We're adjusting. We're making things work. My team are getting things done. You can't really trust what's going out there in the market. Look at all these rejections people are experiencing, because a lot of times they're taking in deals that they're just taking a deal and giving you as much hope as they can to hope that they can get it. That is the inexperienced loan originator. There's a lot of them out there. I saw them already in my career. There's way more of them now, way more inexperienced right now, because they've not seen market cycles. Think about the market cycles I've been in since 1997. You have the dot-com bubble, right? You have 9/11. You end up having the crash of 2008. You end up having COVID. You have all these different things that have occurred. And most of these guys haven't been in it. Definitely, probably some of them just barely before COVID. So they don't know really what it is to have a market cycle. And the market cycle has been wiped out quite a bit. Let's look at the bonds and see what's happening today. It's actually quite interesting. So here's our mortgage-backed securities, as we always like to play in. I look at that 5.5 because that's the one I have the longest view of. It goes all the way back to show you what's going on in this area here. This is that barrier that we always talk about that was created by quantitative easing. Everything below that was the value by the market. Anything above that was created by quantitative easing. So we are hitting it, pulling back every single time. Well, we're following this downward channel we have been. I drew this a couple months, probably well over a month ago, and we followed it in here, whipped out of it, whipped below it, came back in it, played in it. We've come out of this a little bit here. I don't know how long it's going to hold in there. It might come, it might try and rocket back and run back up here, but it may actually even channel, come up and just like it did here. See how it whipped out of it? Now it whipped back in it. It may just keep swinging around in it. That's my guess. That's what it's going to do when I'm just looking at price action. But we'll see how the market reacts to things. It seems like the market's settling down a little bit. It's not quite as volatile and it's not reacting the way it was to tariffs and all that. Maybe people are getting a little bit more used to the idea. But we'll see. So that's today. That's the 29th of April, Tuesday. I'll see you guys on Friday.